training, and more. So, why did we win? Well, we've seen something throughout the years, and the biggest hurdles in creating virtual trainings is the budget, right? It's the investment to actually start creating. And there are nice platforms out there already that make you code trainings without actually coding, or are able to let you reuse stuff. But there's one big hurdle still, which is the actual creation of the environments and mainly the objects. And this is what we are trying to solve and make sure that everyone can benefit from the creation of these objects and make them ready to use in any infrastructure for virtual training. So we got this subsidy for 100 general objects. 50 of them will have the interactive prefabs for Unity and Unreal Engine, and 25 of them will be fully equipped with haptic feedback. So you can use Sense gloves, their gloves, or other hardware in your trainings without having to spend all this money to actually get the 3D before you can start building the actual training. So, like I said, we are specialized in the digitization of objects and environments, so we will do our best to create photorealistic, fully on 3D objects that are optimized for use on any platform, on any device. We will, like I said, we will optimize them. We will completely prefab them in the different game engines ready to use. We will implement the haptics, and together with SyncVR, we will also implement the X API for bringing measurements into other systems. It will look more or less like this, and there's one person on stage that must recognize some of these objects. Those will not be in the library, though. But this is more or less how it will look like. This is a screenshot of our asset management platform, which Dutch will have an account on. And it will be very easy just to add new email addresses and people, so they can go in, they can download whatever they want in the extension they need for the software they need, and everything is ready to go. It will look more or less like this. This is one of the objects that we've done earlier for the Franciscus Ziekenhuis, where we also make virtual hospital trainings. And this is an electrical surgeon device. And it will be fully done with all the extensions you need, the accessories you need, and we will be also rebuilding the software screens inside of it, so you don't have to do that either. We have 4 parties in our consortium now, the 3 already mentioned, and MST, which is also a hospital, and they will tell us which objects are very important. But now comes the important question. We want your input. So if you're planning to do a virtual training and you need 3D objects, please tell us which objects you want. Just contact us through our website or through LinkedIn, and we'll make sure that that object, or hopefully that object, will be digitized as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. And a very abrupt end for me. I was still waiting for the next part because it's interesting to listen to. And I was also thinking, well, hey, Krista might want to use some of your objects, and she might have some ideas as well.
So, well, that's the idea, you know. So we've done this before. We have a couple of safety regions as clients that we do fire trainings for. And what we've seen is that since we use our scenario building system and all the 3D models that we made for other regions, and we reuse it, that we could save up to 60% of development costs from the start. And for many of these regions, this is the change that actually makes something like that happen, right? It's the reusable, and if it's the same, why not just share, you know?
Yeah, and I see a lot of 3D marketplaces are not new, but they usually are dumb in the sense that you get an object, maybe it's disseminated in some loose objects if you're lucky, but there's no logic in it at all. And so this is completely new because you're building a logical layer on top of the objects, and then also with the haptic feedback part.
Yeah, and we love them, huh? We love those marketplaces, we use them all the time, the CG traders, the turbo squids, but usually when you do a training for a specialized company like a hospital, they don't want a device, no, they want that device, right? And that makes the difference between, oh, this is something nice and this is something really useful. So yeah, that's what we're going to try.
Yeah, and you're collaborating first of all with the hospitals, the clinical partners, to get their input from what they want to have. Is there also a route prepared where you go into the boarding rooms of the providers of these devices? So the manufacturers that create those surgical devices, for example, is that something that you plan to do as well?
Yeah, so we tried that route because we've always seen those type of companies as our clients. But the weird thing is they are pushing the responsibility to the ones that are actually want the training, right? So it's the chicken or egg story. And that's the same with the fire department stuff. So we have Francisca Ziekenhuis in now, we have MSD in now, but we're actively looking for more before we start. So we have a good overview of everything before we start, and we make sure that we get the right objects for the subsidy. Yeah.
So it sounds like a good way to prepare. Chris, with a question.
Yeah, just a quick question. If you copy, for example, a draining respiratory machine, is there any concern with the copyrights of the devices?
We don't think so. No, I think we can just if the companies that are using it for their own training, they can do it. Even though we'll try to get everyone involved, also those companies, because they can highly benefit from it as well.
Interesting question still. Indeed, copyrights always a dark cloud hanging somewhere. Looking into the audience for some questions, I see 2 hands. I go to the back first, and then move to the front.
Thanks for the presentation. I was wondering if you, the interaction with the devices. Some medical device can be sometimes really complicated. There are a lot of buttons and knobs and stuff. Is it something you think about, or if you have guidelines about, or is it like you just hand over the asset to the developers and they can do whatever, you can go with it?
Yeah, so cooperation with the ones that are going to use the training is key here. We have quite a bit of experience in digitizing very, very complex machines, and a lot of time can go in. Now with this subsidy, we can spend some substantial time to do it right. And we'd rather do a bit less the right way than more the wrong way, right? So yeah, the input there from the users is key for getting that successfully done.
So you get the input from the users and you work on it, or you have guidelines? How does that work?
So usually we work with the product owner from the hospital, and he's an opleiding specialist, forgot the English name. So they will know very well what they want to get out of it, right? And probably you won't be able to do everything, every niche or problem or whatever, but we'll tackle the most important ones, definitely.
Thank you. Now moving to the front again. We are.
When it will be available and what will it cost?
Well, that depends on the ministry, who is now giving the full approval for the project, so we're waiting on that. And we expect to need about 3 to 6 months to complete fully. To use it.
Sorry.
To use it. After 6 months, more or less.
Do I need a subscription or something to get these?
No, it's fully open source, powered by Dutch.
That's good to know. That's the power of subsidy as well.
Exactly.
So benefits to all of us. Thank you again, Jan.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I know it's quite warm, so clapping takes all the energy that we don't need anymore. But David, thank you for joining us on stage. David has been working, as I said in the introduction, within healthcare for a very long time, switching jobs along the way, switching your function, your role, but never switching where your heart lays. It lays with the end user, the patients, the caretakers. From there, health innovation, VRDays, also managing your brother Nati with a lot of XR adventures. Always great to follow that on YouTube, Instagram, or wherever. The floor is yours. Very excited for your presentation.
Awesome. I'm David de Jong, and I will explain something about the VRDays, which is a product of their health innovation. So what is the VR library? It's a platform, it's a community-driven platform where we have a big range of 360 learning experiences for professionals and students. And what our platform brings together is the technology, the healthcare expertise, educational innovation, and the collaboration between the healthcare and educational organizations. So these are the founders of the company, and like for your context, like in 2018 we started with our first VR training, but we worked at a human technology department of a healthcare organization. So the development always been from the context. So the context from the healthcare organization, which is like small training rooms, lack of staff, and how can you use like VR in a scalable and affordable way, in a community-driven way. So like how are we doing this together? So the challenge in healthcare learning is like most times like shortage of staff, limited training time, very complex care situations which are only increasing, and growing demand for practical learning. And of course, like the traditional learning methods are often time consuming. I just heard something about books. Difficult to scale, less immersive, and hard to practice realistically, and most time not immersive. And VR creates a new way of learning by experiencing situations instead of reading or watching those, so really standing in between it. So our concept is a collaborative ecosystem for VR learning in healthcare. So we work together with senior care organizations, intellectual disability care, hospitals, general practitioners, social domain, youth care, psychiatric care, and educational institutions. And the interesting thing is like a lot of, because we do community driven, so every sector has their own community. We also have a community manager who reaches out twice a year and really focuses on the adoption of the product. But also there's a lot of spillover. So there's, for example, training solutions for giving feedback to students, healthcare students. So in the end, like an intern can be in a nursing home, but can also be in a hospital. So both communities can use the same content, even though there are different sectors and the context is different, but a lot of spillover in the content. We have then like some domains, so we call it empathy, so empathy training. So you, for example, this is one we created, is like a psychosis scenario, so you can experience how it is to have a psychosis. As a family setting, this is your daughter, your wife is there, the person is like going really deep into psychosis, the police is coming, and the ambulance, and they're taking you out of the house. We always co-create, so this scenario has been made with a person that had a psychosis. It's also recorded in his house, and this is the real life scenario, how he had his psychosis and how he got taken from his house by the police and brought to the hospital. We also do training, social skills training, so for example, complex behavior with family members, and here you see a client with an intellectual disability that is very angry and is attacking a medical staff. So training, this is like a hospital training for medication, and last but not least, virtual activities for people living with dementia or people living with intellectual disability. So we really focused on training, but as a bonus you get a virtual activities for your clients and patients. Learning by experiences, what VRDays users can is enter realistic care situations, practice communication skills, learn without pressure or risk, so in a safe environment and virtual world, repeat scenarios anytime and experience patient perspectives. So the experience is immersive, interactive and easy to use. It's 360, and we speak into the technical terms, we use high fidelity. What does a VR experience feel like? I imagine standing in a patient's room. So we always try to create scenarios from the context in co-creation. So are you in front of the door? Are you already in the setting? And because we co-create with the end users and the organizations, we really get really realistic scenarios. So it can be really small details, like we created a COVID scenario with the GGD, like the Dutch NHS. And it was just coughing from COVID, and the nurse said, no, this is not how somebody suffocates from COVID. It's like these small details to make it as realistic as possible. I responded to challenging behavior, practicing communication with colleagues, competent decision making within the context. And users are not watching a situation, they're inside of it. Okay. Scalable learning. VRB makes high quality VR learning accessible and affordable. That's always been our baseline. What I said, we started from a healthcare organization. How can it be accessible? So usability. So we don't use controllers, we don't use hand tracking, we use gaze mode. We have interactive story-based, affordable. So how we started in the Netherlands was like everybody was creating solutions by themselves. Maybe there was a subsidy or a collaborative partner, and we saw in the Netherlands were like different 360 video training made by organizations, but it didn't come together. And so with the community-driven model, with the subscription model, you get access to our content. But also every 3 months we develop a new scenario, and we do that in co-creation sessions with the community. So that's really like from the gaming perspective. If you bought a PlayStation, you know there are great games coming out. So also for us, if you buy a headset and you buy our software, you know there will be new content coming, and you have influence on what that content should be. Easy to implement because we're treed off, so you don't have to walk around, you stand at the place where you're standing. So like we have, for example, care organizations that train 30 staff members within 30 minutes, so 15-minute training, one trainer, to make it scalable. Community driven, so we do co-creation, knowledge sharing in our community, implementation and adoption support, because it's really important to have contact with your customers, how are they using it, and a lot of times the product is like hanging on one person that's really excited for XR, but then that person gets moved to a different job, or like is going to a different department, and then we saw in the past a lot of our products not being used and going in a closet and collecting some dust. So we're really focused on the adoption. So twice a year we have a community manager that reaches out to them and really tries to understand like where are the challenges you're facing, and sometimes just connecting a university with a university around the corner really helps, just to understand and to connect the community together, because all the challenges we're facing are kind of the same, and we should just learn from each other. Low cost, guaranteed content per quarter. By combining expertise, we accelerate learning and improve healthcare training together. So that was it.
Great hand of applause for David. Thank you so much. And yeah, you talk about a lot of different challenges, a lot of challenges that you overcome, but are also working on a daily basis, I think. So making it accessible, making it user-friendly is one of the most important things. You said, well, don't use controllers, make it easy, use gaze control, for example. Does that work in all situations, or do you now also see like, hey, there might be some scenarios where we want to have some other way of immersing those people in those scenarios?
Yeah, for sure. So it's like because as you said, like I travel a lot and see all the latest headsets and XR hardware and software. So the need is there, but the tech is not there. So like even though we use hand tracking, and you may see many applications use hand tracking, works well, but like our end users are between 18 and 67, most of the time without or barely any digital skills. So we would like to go more immersive and more interactive, which we're working on in the background. But what I said, where we come from is like, how can you train medical staff within 30 minutes in a small space with a trainer that's not really equipped to be a trainer? And that's the reality. So we have the reality and we have virtual reality, but how do we move to cross that that barrier? So like we want it to be frictionless. So if we come with our next update of the product, it should be frictionless. And that's the challenge that we're really focused on.
And is there sometimes also a situation where you might advise a potential user to not go for an XR VR solution?
Sometimes, yeah, because it's a tool, so it's not like the solution. Some people see VR as a solution, but it is a tool.
The solution.
Yeah, it's another solution. And also like, so because we're community driven, so we always start with 3 to 5 organizations to start a community, to kickstart it. And so yeah, sometimes we say to a new community, one organization comes in and says we want to start, and so we only start community. So we're a concept, we're a product, we're also a concept. And we believe in a community, we believe in co-creation and doing it together. And that's the way to move forward in healthcare. And if that's low tech or high tech, it doesn't matter, but we have to do it together.
Great. Maybe any questions from the audience? All the way in the back, make me run.
Well, thank you for the presentation and the nice community initiative. You talked about case mode. Are you also really using eye tracking as a tool also that can be used for evaluating the training, or you plan that to integrate eye tracking moves as evaluation on the trainings?
Yeah, so at the moment it's gaze mode for the accessibility, but like yeah, so like we believe that the next the spatial computers, for example, will be the next wave of the tech, and combining hand tracking with eye tracking, I think that would be lowering or like would be frictionless experience. So we're really trying to figure out how we can go from 3 degrees of freedom in a scalable way and going to 6 degrees of freedom with eye tracking and hand tracking, but still that scalable way that you have one trainer with 30 medical staff and you can train them in 30 minutes. So we're really like the practice, but that technology will like, I think, enable a lot of like more inclusivity and also collect way more data, digital biomarkers. There's so much in eye gazing you can collect. You can see how somebody's feeling. There's so much data you can collect from the eye trackers.
So some work ahead.
It's definitely
Some
always.
work ahead. And indeed, you see a lot of new technology even here on the show floor, but not all technologies which might seem ready for end users is not ready for end users.
Exactly. It's like, because we're here in a bubble, you know, we're early adopters, we know our industry, we know how to use these tools, but outside there's many people, majority of people have never tried XR.
And do you see, or maybe experience that those parties, those manufacturers of those devices or sensors are talking to you to get an insight like, hey, what should we do to make it work? Maybe Monique, talk with David, what can we do to make it work?
No, there are conversations, especially like if you look at the more high advanced, like the spatial computers, for example, prescription glasses, like there's like, if we're moving towards like more these like high grade technologies that can do so much more, but how can we still make it inclusive? So for example, the specs came out last week when I was in the States, and with them trying to figure out like, you have a different prescription than me. If you have an Apple Vision Pro, it's like these small things, you have to order them, it's really challenging. But now with the specs, you can really easily change. So you can have your AR glass, you can give it to your grandfather with a prescription. So it's like, how can we bridge the gap of making it more accessible?
Yeah, and it's a great example, like something simple like people needing prescription lenses.
Yeah.
It's still a challenge in most cases.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, thank you so much. I want to go to a more inclusive part of the end of this session. We heard a lot about the different challenges they have, a lot of different solutions that are there. So I have one bold question, and maybe you have your answer. Say, hey, I already talked about it. If you want, grab the